Hi, everybody, and welcome. We're glad you're here. As you can tell by that smiling face on the left, we're here today with Mr. John Brenan. Now, if you've been in appraising for more than 15 minutes, you know that John is now the Chief Appraiser for Clear Capital. He was for almost 17 years the Vice President for Appraisal Issues at the Appraisal Foundation. He was the chief of licensing and enforcement for the entire state of California for 9 years. For a long period of time, he was a district manager and assistant VP at Bank of America, specifically training and supervising residential appraisers. And he was a boots on the ground appraiser for Fidelity Federal Savings and Loan, as well as Home Federal Savings and Loan. He's certified in California, general certified in California. He's a USPAP instructor, and something that not a lot of appraisers in the United States have earned, he is a fellow of the Royal Institution of Chartered Surveyors. John, welcome. It's a pleasure to be with you today.
Well, thank you, Tim. I appreciate you having me. It's a pleasure being here.
If we were in front of an audience, there'd be a round of applause, but it's just us. So the applause is there. It's just silent. Nobody can hear it.
I heard, I listened real hard, I think.
Okay, all right, good deal. John, as you know, these things are not scripted. We just kind of carry on. We do have some talking points that we're going to cover, but and I sent them to you so as there was no issue of an ambush, but I don't know what you're going to say. And as I explained to you before we went on the air, my interview model is ask questions, shut up. So for the next 30 minutes or so, it's going to be your time to carry on. And what we talk about here is what goes up on Facebook. I don't edit these things. So let's start out with the first issue. Of late, there's been a lot about appraisers being biased. There's been stuff on the news, there's been stuff in newspapers, etc. Those articles, those stories have painted appraisers with a broad negative brush. Now, would you be so kind as to give us your thoughts on bias, how to avoid it, how to combat the negative picture the media has painted so far, and more importantly, what changes need to be made to the appraisal education and mentoring process to overcome this potential stigma?
Well, Tim, yeah, as you mentioned, this is obviously an issue that's gained national attention recently and is even part of President-elect Biden's platform in terms of potential discrimination issues. There's a few different things I want to say. The first thing I want to say is I don't believe there is an epidemic or a problem with appraisers being discriminatory or biased in any type of significant way at all. I think that I would also be remiss to say that that there are no biased appraisers, and let me clarify that by saying that I think that we've learned a lot over the last months and years in terms of things like social justice issues and discrimination, to where there may be unconscious bias that some people may have. I think that there are going to be people with racism or bias in every aspect of our lives, whether it's intentional, unintentional, whatever. Truck drivers, doctors, appraisers. But I want to make it clear, I don't believe that there is a problem with appraisers and any type of discrimination against any type of race, creed, color, nationality, etc. In fact, I think that appraisers, as you know, we receive training, we have standards that absolutely put us at the forefront of being independent, objective, impartial. And in fact, if you read the ethics rule in USPAP, it uses those terms, and it says that we must perform assignments without bias. Not every profession not every career, not every line of work has those type of standards built right in. So I think that when you talk about these very sensitive and very serious issues, that it is built into who we are as appraisers to try to be aware of that, be sensitive to that, and to not participate in it. I think that some of the stories that we've heard, certainly not going to speak to their validity or I know there's a lot of appraisers out there that, immediately we take umbrage with the whole concept that we may not be independent or objective and being characterized in this way. Certainly understand that because of our training and wanting to be so unbiased in what we do. I think that the primary issue for appraisers in this very sensitive topic is one of awareness. It's one of making sure and reinforcing that those vital characteristics of independence and impartiality are adhered to. I think that we do receive training when we want to become an appraiser. They're a part of the qualifying education requirements to get a credential includes training on fair housing laws. That is part of the required core curriculum to become an appraiser. In addition, there are continuing education courses as refreshers for appraisers. I know that the Appraiser Qualifications Board and the Appraisal Foundation are looking at enhancing those education requirements a little bit. I know that the Appraisal Standards Board is looking at, are there ways to underscore the same type of issues within USPAP and within the guidance. There's advisory opinions on fair housing. Again, the entire ethics rule talks about being impartial and objective. So there are a lot of this is already baked into us as appraisers, but I do think that it is because of the significance and the potential impact of these issues, it is a good thing to act as a refresher to say, hey, let's just make sure when we're looking at things that we are looking at them entirely objectively. And one of the nice things is that there are tools that can help us today that enable us to make that type of independent and objective analysis a little bit easier. With a lot of the big data that is out, a lot of automated valuation models and tools like that can help us, look at what our analysis is, what our conclusions and opinions are, and kind of give us a little bit of a fact check on ourselves to make sure that, we are seeing things properly. I think those are great tools. I think they can help appraisers go back and kind of get back to that ground zero of making sure that there are no preformed biases or discriminatory behaviors. Again, I think that if there is anything that is prevalent in this, it's probably more of an unconscious thing. And when I say prevalent, I certainly don't mean it's wide reaching, but I think that a lot of people, not just appraisers in this country, with some of the issues that have happened in recent months, have questioned themselves and their upbringings and their beliefs and things like that. I don't think that this is an appraiser problem. If anything, it's something that we as Americans in this country are awakening to, if you will, and are making sure that our beliefs, our behaviors, our actions don't in some way contribute to this issue of discrimination or bias.
In your remarks, you mentioned the Appraisal Foundation, the AQB, the Appraisal Qualifications Board, and the ASB, the Appraisal Standards Board. And you indicated that they were all taking various steps given their various jurisdictions, for lack of a better term, to make sure appraisers understand that prejudice, bias, etc., is not something that is that should be part of appraising. So basically, what you're saying is those who the appraiser's top leadership, appraisal's top leadership, are aware that there is an issue. I'm not going to call it a problem, but they're aware that there is an issue. And because of this awareness, they are making the necessary changes, be those changes to what exists or coming up with something brand new, in order that appraisers understand that they have to follow what USPAP says, that they have to follow the definition of an appraisal: competent, independent, objective, impartial, no bias, etc. So in other words, those folks at the top, those who have the ability to influence us, influence what we do, and influence why we do it, are indeed exerting influence. Am I correct?
Yeah, here's how I would phrase it is these stories have gotten out. Everybody has seen them. And again, I mentioned it's become as widespread as being part of the presidential platform. So it's out there. And so being that awareness exists, it only makes sense for the Appraisal Standards Board, the Appraisal Qualifications Board, those type of entities with the influence you just mentioned, to examine this issue. It doesn't mean there's a problem. And ultimately, they may not make any changes. They may feel that everything there is adequate. I can't speak for what they will or they won't do, but it is the perfect opportunity to re-examine this issue to make sure that everything is being done, everything is as much as possible is being done to, as exactly as you said, make sure that appraisers understand what their obligations are, maybe understand where there are potential sticking points, either real or perceived, maybe understand the types of things they can do to perhaps avoid any unintentional appearance of some sort of discrimination, whether it be using additional approaches to value, whether it be using some of the tools that I mentioned, data tools. There may be other ways. There may be things that appraisers are not doing today on a regular basis that can help underscore. Not talking about technology replacing appraisers here. I'm talking about appraisers being able to use the tools and the technology that's available to them today to enhance their practice, and in this particular area, demonstrate that in fact they are being completely objective and unbiased.
You just mentioned technology. You just mentioned AVMs. We both know that the appraisal process, as we have it, is basically a legacy from the Federal Housing Administration immediately after the Great Depression. So while appraisal has changed, the appraisal process has been pretty solid for about the last 90 years. Do you see on the horizon any changes to the appraisal process given the changes in technology, AVMs, hybrid appraisals, the current availability of literally mountains of data, possibly too much data even to handle? Is the appraisal process going to have to change to keep up with these changes in technology?
Tim, I don't see how it can't. I can pick up my smartphone and have a virtual appointment with my doctor. My doctor. You're not, there may not be many more important interactions than that. When you're talking about your physical or mental health and well-being, and you can do that over a smartphone, you're witnessing significant advances in technology. For us to say as appraisers that we're doing the same thing, the same way we've been doing it for 90 years, I don't think that's healthy for our profession looking into the future. I think that there are tools, and let me preface this by saying one thing. I don't think that tools will replace appraisers. I think that appraisers who are willing to consider how their practices can evolve will be able to incorporate these tools and these technologies and make them better appraisers, and not only give them more opportunity, but make them more critical to the process. Because the areas where technology may not do quite what it needs to do for certain transactions, that makes the appraiser's role even more important. There will always be, in my view, assignments where an appraiser's expertise is absolutely crucial to the proper analysis of the collateral. I don't think there's any way that you can ever say that it could or it should. I think that you mentioned hybrid appraisals. There are so many appraisers, including myself, that were brought up, you are the eyes and the ears for this lender. You are out there to view this property, to share your opinions and conclusions. Hey, look, that made us special, right? The escrow officer, the title officer, the loan officer, they don't get to go out and look at the house. We do. That made us very special, and we still are. But one of the things we need to think about is what is it that really sets us apart? What sets us apart is that analytical ability. So while some appraisers still hold on to that, well, I can't trust somebody else to do the inspection. You have to ask yourself, is the inspection the most important thing about the assignment? Well, I'll say this. What is the purpose of the inspection? It's to obtain relevant characteristics about the property. That's very important. Is it the most important thing? If that was the most important thing, then people would just be doing inspections, and that would be for evaluations, for appraisals. That would be what they focused on. Appraisers are important because we have the ability to collect data, to look at those physical characteristics, and to analyze that data and come up with opinions and conclusions. Inspectors can't do that. That makes that part of the process crucial. And the type of training and expertise that appraisers have is perfectly suits that role. What being stuck in the past and being stuck, and I'm saying the past because these things are here now. I mean, Tim, the COVID-19 pandemic that has created so much of an impact in our lives also created some opportunities. I think we are very fortunate in the appraisal and the lending sector to have been able to carry on business. Maybe not exactly like we did prior to the pandemic, But for example, look at people in the hospitality sector. Look at how their careers and their lives have been impacted by COVID. So many of them have built their lives to create these businesses that either they've had to shut down or they are hanging on by a thread trying to make it. It's awful. They hire people, they have staffs, those people are suffering. It's an awful situation. We have been more fortunate. I'm not saying we have not had negative impacts, but the ability to do things like go out and use tools like homeowner-enabled inspection tools to help us gather information about the property, inside the property, to be able to perform hybrid or desktop appraisals using that information. That has provided a way for appraisers to stay in business. And I'll take it a step further. With what's happened with interest rates and the real estate activity, despite the pandemic, appraisal volume has been setting records. So not everything that has occurred that has negatively affected other professions has affected appraisal, but it has opened our eyes into other ways that things can be done from that same old traditional way we've always done things. I think that there will be a lot of things in our lives, not just talking about appraisal now, I'm talking about a lot of things that people will ask the question when the pandemic's over, if it worked during COVID, why can't it work now? And I think there will be parts of that that apply to appraisal. I think there will be tools, and tools not to replace appraisers or to marginalize appraisers or to minimize appraisers, but to make appraisers better at what they do. Analyze, interpret data to come up with opinions and conclusions. I think that day is here. I think that appraisers that see that welcome it. I think that it does take an open mind. It's so easy to say, oh, that's not how we did it, and not want to do it. But you know what they say, if you don't like change, you're going to like irrelevance even less. So it's time to understand there are other opportunities, and it doesn't mean you're any less of an appraiser. It doesn't mean you're any less important, but it means possibly you're more important. But look at exactly what you're doing and what you're bringing to the table.
John, in light of that, in connection with what you're bringing to the table, let's suppose that you got a phone call one day and the caller introduced him or herself as a newbie appraiser and said, you know, John, you've been doing this now for quite some time, which you have. And the appraiser said, what advice would you give me as I start my appraisal career? And what advice would you give him or her as he or she starts that appraisal career?
Well, it's a great question, and it's one that I actually do get, and I have gotten very recently. I think that, and particularly depends on, you know, what the person's aptitudes, goals, their view, their perspective on their type of work environment. A lot of that, it obviously depends. But here's what I would say is that it is a great, despite what some might say, I think it's a great time to become an appraiser. I think that being able to see and experience where appraisal is at today and understanding that entire rationale for why we do what we do, and be able to see the perspective where the business is today in terms of the more traditional way we do things, I think will set somebody up who is just entering the business today in the next 5 or 10 years of seeing a more modern appraisal business. And a lot of those people that are younger that are open to technology and embrace technology will be able to see leaps and bounds over what is currently done in appraisal and have that type of open mind and that willingness to take on those changes and be able to see where this career goes. I know that there are a lot of people out there that think that, oh, they're just trying to get rid of appraisers and they want AVMs to do everything and appraisers are going to be long gone. I don't believe that's true. As I said, I believe that appraisers are going to be vitally important going forward. It's going to be a focus on what their skill set is and where they are needed. I think the future is bright for people coming in today. I think there are a lot of opportunities. Obviously, one of the things that has been a struggle for many, many, many years, Tim, if I had a nickel for every time I heard a trainee tell me they can't find a supervisor, I wouldn't be talking to you right now. I'd be out on a yacht in the ocean behind me. But I think with some of the most recent things that have occurred, such as the Appraiser Qualifications Board adopting the practical applications of real estate appraisal concept, which will become effective January 1st, I think that creates an opportunity for training that will enable appraisers to be successful almost immediately. I think that there are those who say, oh, you can never replace boots on the ground training. And I'll say this, to some degree, that's true. If, let's say, Tim, that you happen to be an appraiser that specializes in ranchettes on small acreage in a rural area, and you are kind enough to say, I'll supervise you, Brennan, and I go to work for you, and you're going to train me on your niche, and you're going to train me over a couple of years. And let's say it's been the last couple of years. So I'm going to know how to do those properties, probably better than anybody except you. And then I'm going to know what happens to the marketplace in the time frame we've experienced. Now, when I get my license, what do I have a license for? It's not to appraise ranchettes in a positive or strong market. It's to appraise any real property that the credential allows me to within that state at any time. So let's say that I decide I want to move to an urban part of the state, and I get a lot of requests to appraise condos, or let's say it's New York City co-ops. And let's say that the market starts trending down. Obviously, I've gotten great training, and I may have some ideas on what I'm going to need to learn, but I don't know how to appraise those properties. I've never experienced one. I've never seen one. With this practical applications of real estate appraisal concept done right, a trainee will learn how to appraise all sorts of different types of properties in all sorts of different market conditions with all sorts of different data, good data, bad data, weak data, strong data. There will be the ability to use technology to provide training like no one will ever see. Now, it may not be as good as the training you'd provide on those ranchettes in your area, but it'll be a more broad-based training that will allow these people to be more marketable and to be able to work in a bigger variety of circumstances. I think that training, that this concept, this PARIA concept, will allow for people to enter the profession and be better prepared. They're not going to be competent. Understand, there's a difference between qualified and competent. I got my certified general credential, and the day I got that credential, I was legally allowed, I was qualified to appraise any property in the state of California. I wasn't competent to do so. Competency is part of USPAT and your requirements. So they'll still have to be geographically competent. They'll have to be competent for the different property types, et cetera, but they'll be qualified and they'll be prepared better than they are in many cases today.
So the concept of Perea is really a function not only of upping the appraiser's game when it comes to training, but taking advantage of new technology in order to up the appraiser's game. Is that correct?
100% correct. Using technology in a way that it has never been used in terms of training appraisers. That's exactly right.
And you say that goes into effect January 1st, 2021, correct?
Yeah, that's what the AQB adopted it here a couple of weeks ago, and they made it effective January 1st of 2021. Now, there still is a process that they're working on to actually be able to review and approve programs that are developed in the marketplace by private providers, schools, whoever might decide that they want to offer a Perea training program. So come January 1st, 2021, there may not be one that somebody can go sign up for yet, but that will legally be part of the appraiser criteria. Now, the next step is also the various states need to adopt that and implement it because it becomes part of the AQB criteria. But officially, that is the kickoff date that Perea will be part of, will be an alternative way to obtain experience for an appraiser's credential.
Excellent. John, please let me thank you. I appreciate your time. I appreciate you taking your time to sit down with me. Everyone who watches this, I'm sure, will appreciate being, we see you in meetings and you're up on the stand and you're giving a speech, but here we get to see up close and we get to hear you one-on-one rather than in a large meeting context. And I know that this has been very eye-opening for me. I think it has been for everybody. And speaking of meetings, I do look forward to the next time we get to go to a meeting together and shake hands in person. Virtual meetings are certainly informative, but they lack a certain fellowship factor that you just can't get when you can shake someone's hand and ask about their family. So, John, again, let me thank you. It's been an honor to be with you. I appreciate your expertise. I appreciate your candor very much. Anything else before we sign off?
No, Tim, I would just again thank you for the opportunity, and again, I look forward to the day that I can get a chance to chat with you in the hall of a hotel somewhere at one of these conferences and get a chance to chat. So again, thank you for the opportunity. Really appreciate it, and thanks for what you do very much.
John, thank you. It's my honor to help my fellow appraisers and be part of real estate appraisal. I've been doing it for, well, since the previous millennium, but it's something that I enjoy very much. So again, John, thank you. Thank you, listeners. Thank you, viewers. We appreciate it very much. And stay tuned for the next one because there will be more. Thank you so much. Bye-bye now.